and separation alerts. So what are you guys waiting for? Whether it be for the Parliament wallet or solar powered tracking card, Exter is changing the game. Use the link in my description or use code NCHammer $23 at checkout for 25. Kawaki and Boruto manifest their karma markings from one side of their body that makes a bunch of lines over that side of the body, with the majority of their lines focusing on their arms and the side of their face which the karma marking is manifesting from. This is simply the lower level of the manifestation of the karma mark, kind of like Naruto only activating Sage Mode instead of Jin Cloak plus Sage Mode. Activating to the point where there's only markings on their body allows them to do things like absorb ninjutsu, increases their speed and their strength, and so on and so forth. However, at the highest level of karma marking awakening, I guess, we see something very important start to manifest on the half side of the face that's manifesting the lines of the karma marking, and this would be horns. Specifically, the horn of the Otsutsuki living inside of the karma vessel. At least, is what we're supposed to believe. Because in the case of Kawaki, at least prior to the death of Ishiki, when he fully manifests the strongest version of his karma mode, he grew Ishiki's wraparound horn, very clearly demonstrating that Kawaki was leaning on the power of Ishiki. Now, Boruto also grows a horn when manifesting the strongest version of his karma mode. However, unlike Kawaki, Boruto is never under control of this strongest karma mode, as the only times we've ever seen Boruto manifest a horn is when Momoshiki was in control. What's weird about the manifestation of this horn, though, is that it's not Momoshiki's horn. See, Momoshiki pre-fusing didn't even really have horns. They were kind of like rabbit ears. And more importantly than anything, these rabbit ears came from the top of his head. And Momoshiki, after fusing, also didn't really have horns. I mean, he did, but not in the place that Boruto has them. See, after fusing, Momoshiki's horns went from rabbit ears to kind of bull horns, but still on top of his head, which would mean that if Boruto was to manifest the horn of Momoshiki when Momoshiki took over his karma mode, much in the same way that Kawaki did when he was either manifesting all of Ishiki's strength or Ishiki was ceding control of his body, that he either should have grown a rabbit ear or a bull horn out of the mid to back of his head. But he doesn't. Instead, Boruto grows a horn from his forehead, a curved horn that thins out at the top and comes to a tip. And while for a while we just assumed that Boruto and Momoshiki have a different relationship than Kawaki and Ishiki, or that it's entirely possible that Boruto is manifesting Momoshiki's ears but kind of in reverse, like at the front of his head, that was until, of course, we got the first images of Shiba, who has two horns that come out of his forehead that are curved, that come together at the top to make a tip. They are, for all intents and purposes, panel for panel, Boruto's horns, which by itself is a weird little coincidence until you realize in that same panel, the only panel we have of Shibai's appearance from the front, that on Shibai's right side, he has a pale eye. Now that's weird, but also not so weird. It's weird because Boruto's right eye, while under the control of Momoshiki, is a Byakugan, which makes sense when we consider that the base eye of an Otsutsuki is a Byakugan, and that Momoshiki, even though he had a Rinnegan in his forehead and his palms, had two Byakugan for each eye. However, if we were also hypothetically talking about Shibai, and this pale eye of Shibai's was a Byakugan, it would also line up with Boruto's karma mode, because Shibai also has a Byakugan in his right eye. But Boruto's right eye isn't only a Byakugan, it's also a Jogan, which has been something that Momoshiki has been suspicious about and highly intrigued in since the moment he saw Boruto. In fact, it's the entire reason that Momoshiki chose Boruto to receive his karma seal. So what if this pale eye that we're seeing in Shibai's black and white panel isn't a Byakugan and is in fact a Jogan? It would make sense for a lot of reasons, most notably being that the first time we actually ever saw Shibai is when Ishiki was talking to Code after his death, and he told Code to try to eat as many chakra fruits as possible to become an Otsutsuki god. At which point we were given an image of an Otsutsuki god that we didn't know was Shibai, but this Otsutsuki god had three eyes, one of them being a Rinnegan in his forehead, much like Shibai, and was surrounded by walls of eyes, which we now know are most likely Jogan, considering the fact that the colorized version of the manga decided to draw these eyes blue and is not white, implying that the power of the Jogan is directly tied into the Otsutsuki god, which once again, to bring things back to Momoshiki, would be the reason that Momoshiki would want to make Boruto his karmic vessel. If he was to make him his karmic vessel and reincarnate through Boruto, he himself would acquire these abilities. People assume that Momoshiki chose Boruto because they were in contact at the moment of Momoshiki's death, but you know who else was in contact with Momoshiki at the moment of his death? Naruto was a family Rasengan. And in that moment, Momoshiki decided to place a karma marking on Boruto, not Naruto. So the real question becomes, how did Boruto become the inheritor of Shibai's DNA and chakra? How did Boruto essentially become a white karma mark user for Shibai, inheriting possibly his powers, but not his will? And mind you, people with white karma markings like Code can receive black karma markings. In fact, it was Boruto and Kawaki's original idea for Boruto to place a karma marking on Code and manifest his personality back through Code to reincarnate in a body that Boroshiki wouldn't be able to take over, since Code had already proved to have been compatible with the karma marking because of his white karma seal. And honestly, the true meat of this theory cracks into answering this question. See, we understand that Shibai's corpse is on Earth, as Amado and Ishiki use Shibai's corpse to pass Shinjutsu to the cyborgs like Ada and Daemon. And we know, I'm throwing that in quotation marks because we can never really trust anything Amado says, or Momoshiki for that matter, who are the two people feeding us information in this situation, that Shibai went through so many karmic reincarnations and ate so many chakra fruits that he no longer needed a body. Therefore, he abandoned his body and rose to a dimension of his own where he now currently exists. Now, whether or not this body was truly abandoned on Earth doesn't really mean that much in the grand scheme of things, because we know at the very least that Ishiki was in possession of this body. Now, obviously, they only began doing experiments with Shibai's body like 2 decades ago, as Ada is 16, I believe? But for the sake of this theory, let's assume that Shibai did cast away his body on Earth, which is possibly corroborated by the fact that at the car hideout, there was 2 Otsutsuki symbols that were old and decayed and broken. And as these symbols looked significantly older than the other symbols that were there, which were created for Ishiki, Kaguya, Momoshiki, and Kinshiki, this would imply that Shibai and possibly his lower-ranking Otsutsuki had come to Earth long before those 4. So as it currently stands within the confines of what we're talking about today, Shibai's corpses existed on Earth for possibly thousands of years, long before Kaguya and Ishiki descended down to Earth to make it into a chakra fruit. And in fact, the fact that Shibai's body existed on Earth could quite possibly be the reason that Kaguya and Ishiki chose to go to Earth. See, here's the thing. We know that Shibai's body still exists and still very much contains his DNA and chakra, as Ishiki and Amado were using Shibai's body to implant Shinjutsu in the cyborgs, which would require not only his chakra, but his DNA. And considering the fact that Shibai had eaten possibly hundreds of chakra fruits, he was probably all but immortal when he at his body, which means that his body almost definitely did not decay. I mean, we've been digging up Hashirama's corpse for like 8 decades to get cells, and he was just a dude. So to assume that Shibai's body still very much exists in the state that he left it, not crazy. And thus Shibai leaving his body on Earth explains why there was so much interest in Earth. See, we know that the way that a divine tree works is that it grows its roots into the earth and absorbs all of the nature chakra, energy, DNA, everything of a planet until the entire planet is sucked dry, and that creates a chakra fruit. This chakra fruit, upon being consumed, gives longevity and increased strength to the Otsutsuki who eats it. So what if, hypothetically, you were to grow a divine tree on the planet where Shibai's corpse exists? Well, as his DNA and chakra still very much exists on Earth, that divine tree would then suck up the DNA and chakra of Shibai's body, meaning that the person who consumed this chakra fruit would not only consume all of the chakra and DNA of the Earth, but also the DNA and the chakra of Shibai Otsutsuki. And considering the fact that this body had gone through karmic reincarnation dozens of times and consumed hundreds of chakra fruits and knew every single Shinjutsu, that'd be a hell of a fruit. And somebody did eat this fruit. Specifically, Kaguya ate this fruit. See, the only person who's ever eaten Earth's chakra fruit was Kaguya, thousands of years before the timeline of Naruto. But what's weird about Kaguya eating the chakra fruit is that it didn't kill the Earth, even though the one that she was trying to create during the 4th Great Shinobi World War and during her battle against her 2 sons would have. And on top of the fact that every single divine tree that Momoshiki has ever grown destroyed the planet it was grown on. So the real question becomes, why did this one chakra fruit not kill Earth, the chakra fruit that gave Kaguya chakra in the first place? Well, one reason that people posit is that Kaguya only used the lower half of Ishiki to make this divine tree grow. As we know, that Kaguya jumps Ishiki and tears him in half. So people believe that with only half of Ishiki, Kaguya wasn't able to grow a full divine tree that would eat all of Earth. And Kaguya, after eating this chakra fruit, awakens a Rinne Sharingan, which he uses to enact Infinite Tsukiyomi, which is kind of backwards to things as we know now, but stick with me here. Upon enacting Infinite Tsukiyomi, Kaguya rules over the Earth. And we know that she uses infinite Tsukiyomi to create 100,000 white Zetsu, people whose energy and DNA was sucked into the Divine Tree. Kaguya then uses newfound chakra power and the power of the Divine Tree to rule over humanity. Cool, we know that. But this kind of ignores everything that we know about how Divine Trees work. Momoshiki and Ishiki have even gone on to say that sacrificing somebody who's not fully Otsutsuki, like Kawaki or Boruto, before they fully go through their Otsutsufication would still grow a Divine Tree, but the chakra fruit itself would be of low quality, which implies to me that the planet itself would still be consumed, but the chakra fruit wouldn't be that powerful, which leads me to two possible conclusions. One, the original story we're told about Kaguya going from planet to planet looking for a Divine Tree isn't actually wrong. See, well, obviously in Naruto it's explained that Kaguya went from planet to planet looking for Divine Trees whose seeds had fallen off of meteors. That part is obviously wrong, but the idea of Kaguya going from planet to planet may not be. Well, obviously we now know that she was accompanying Ishiki on these tours. What if instead of hypothetically using Ishiki's legs to create a Divine Tree, that they just found a Divine Tree? Specifically, they found a Divine Tree on Earth, and this was the Divine Tree they were looking for. Now, this Divine Tree would be made in the way of Divine Trees as we understand them currently. A team of Otsutsukis who feed a lower ranking Otsutsuki to the 10 tails, and then boom, a Divine Tree grows. Easy enough, but who are they? Well, more likely than not, they're the two broken symbols at the Kara hideout, which explains why those symbols are significantly older than all of the other symbols, because they were there before Kaguya and Ishiki, who showed up 2,000 years ago. This Divine Tree was planted using Shibai's lower ranking Otsutsuki and bared a fruit. Now, once again, one of two things could have happened here. It's either a possibility that this Divine Tree sucked all of the life out of Earth, but over thousands of years that life came back, or it's a possibility that this Divine Tree didn't suck all of the life out of Earth. What truly matters is that this Divine Tree bears a fruit for Shibai, and this is the chakra fruit that pushed Shibai over the threshold of being able to abandon his body. And thus, Shibai's body is left on Earth, possibly at the base of the Divine Tree. And over the course of thousands of years, Shibai's body seeps chakra and DNA into the base of this Divine Tree. Not to mention that the early days of Naruto, there is an existent Divine Tree, which is said to suck all of the nature energy around it and kill anybody who gets close enough. Assuming that for thousands of years, this Divine Tree has been sucking the nature energy around it and killing anybody who's dumb enough to get close to it, slowly but surely this Divine Tree would grow, once again, a chakra fruit. And since there was no one there to cast infinite Tsukiyomi to send the Divine Tree's roots all around Earth like Madara did in the War Arc, this Divine Tree made what many would assume to be a humble chakra fruit. A humble chakra fruit meaning that this chakra fruit shouldn't be that strong considering the fact it hasn't killed that many people, which is why after Kaguya is kidnapped by Tenzo's rival village, Tenzo is her husband, and she runs away from the warring factions who are afraid of her raw strength, that she's able to call down and consume an existing chakra fruit. Quite possibly the existing chakra fruit that Ishiki was looking for before Kaguya betrayed him. And then upon consuming this chakra fruit, Kaguya awoke to godlike power, which is weird when we consider the fact that this should have, for all intents and purposes, been a humble chakra fruit. And yet Kaguya is the only person in the history of eating chakra fruits to awaken a Rinne Sharingan. Not Ishiki, not Momoshiki, not even Shibai, at least so far as we can currently see. The eye in his forehead doesn't have any Tomei, but could operate like Sasuke's 6th Tomei Rinnegan, where he's able to awaken Tomei whenever he wants. On top of the fact that Kaguya was able to use numerous Shinjutsu that we didn't see from the likes of Momoshiki or even possibly Ishiki, as Kaguya had access to things like Ashal killing Bone, her ability to travel between dimensions, her ability to pull parts of separate universes to her current location, Kajari, I'm looking it up. Ame Namanaka. Kaguya, by the simple act of eating one chakra fruit that wasn't that powerful, rose to godlike power. And while obviously we can never know if Kaguya was more powerful than Momoshiki or Kinshiki or Ishiki or Oroshiki, the fact that she's able to be placed in the same conversation as them after only eating one what should have been a weak chakra fruit raises a couple of red flags. So what if the real reason that Kaguya acquired all this power from just one chakra fruit wasn't just plot necessity, but instead Shibai's DNA and chakra? And the thing is, this theory actually unites what we know from Naruto and Boruto without retconning anything. Kaguya eats the chakra fruit. The Divine Tree still exists. The Divine Tree that was created by Shibai and his underling through the process which has been lined out in Boruto. That Divine Tree still exists, and Kaguya, upon realizing that her sons have chakra, wants that Divine Tree to eat the entire world to make another chakra fruit that she can consume. Kaguya is unable to do this, and the Divine Tree is reverted back into a 10-tail. Ten-Tails. A Ten-Tails, which Hagoromo becomes the Jinchuriki of for a couple of decades, and then subsequently splits into the Nine-Tailed Beasts. Nine-Tailed Beast that Momoshiki tries to bring back together to recreate the Ten-Tails to feed Kinshiki to recreate the Divine Tree. This also explains why Kaguya and Ishiki would bring the Ten-Tails that exist at the Kara hideout, as while they were looking for the Divine Tree that Shibai possibly abandoned his body under, they were also traveling with the Ten-Tails to seed other planets. And just like that, every single plot point in Naruto and Boruto is connected seamlessly. The other possible explanation, because in the way beginning of all of this I said there was two, is that Kaguya, after creating the Divine Tree, didn't want to destroy the entire world because she was in love with Tenzo. And because she was in love with Tenzo and wanted a place to raise her children, she didn't destroy the entirety of Earth. But that doesn't explain why there's two Ten-Tails, as that would imply that Kaguya and Ishiki had brought a Ten-Tails, which Kaguya fed the lower half of Ishiki to, and now there's just the second Ten-Tail. So I'm going with the first, but it's up to you. So how does any of this relate to Boruto? Fantastic question. Talk about that, we're gonna talk about another theory I've had for a long time. See, Boruto and Himawari are technically the inheritors of Kaguya's chakra. What do I mean by that? Well, think about it for a sec. Naruto during the War Arc received Hagoromo's chakra directly from Hagoromo, giving Naruto Sage of Six Paths chakra, which he still has. And since we know chakra ghosts are absolutely a thing, considering the fact that we've very much seen that Ashura's chakra ghost clings to Naruto, which makes Naruto a literal reincarnation of Ashura, Hagoromo giving his chakra over to Naruto also kind of makes Naruto Hagoromo. But Naruto isn't the only person who's received chakra from one of Kaguya's children, as during the last, when Naruto and Hinata were finally, you know, Kissing, Hinata goes on to receive Hamura's chakra. See, Hinata as a Hyuga is a direct descendant of Hamura, and as the current heiress to the Hyuga family, she's about as close to Hamura as she could be. Hamura also exists as a chakra ghost, much like his brother. However, Hamura is not the Sage of Six Paths, so he's a little bit weaker, therefore it's harder for him to intervene in other people's lives. Therefore, it was the perfect situation for Hinata to meet Hamura, because Hamura lived on the moon until he died. Hamura moved to the moon with a group of his descendants to keep an eye over the Earth that Hagoromo was creating, and after Hamura's death, his Tenseigan was kept alive with the Byakugans of all of his descendants. However, Hamura, realizing that the power of his Tenseigan was being abused, reached out to Hinata and offered her the rest of his chakra, which Hinata and Naruto used to destroy the Tenseigan. Now, the last is the only canon movie, so everything I'm talking about right now is as valid as the manga, which means that both Hinata and Naruto are the inheritors of Hamura and Hagoromo's chakra, respectively. And what happens when you combine the chakra of Hamura and Hagoromo? You get Kaguya, so long as we assume that the rule of Indra and Ashura's chakra makes Hagoromo applies. But Naruto and Hinata don't mix their chakra. Well, I guess considering the fact that Madara only needed to take a little bit of Hashirama's cells and stuff it in one of his wounds implies that something as simple as a blood transfusion is enough to mix chakras. And considering the fact that blood and baby nectar have the same amount of genetic material, Naruto and Hinata have two children. And for all intents and purposes, Hinata should actually technically have Naruto's chakra, which would mean that she would have Hagoromo and Hamura's chakra, which would mean that she's also Kaguya. But I don't think Kishimoto wants to go into depth about Hinata's frosting fillings, so we're gonna stick to their children. And finally, through an incredibly circuitous and arduous journey, we have made it to Boruto and Himawari, who are the physical blending of Naruto and Hinata's chakra, and thus are the physical blending of Hagoromo and Hamura's chakra, which would explain a lot of things, specifically Boruto's Jogan, a Shinjutsu which we know is tied to the Otsutsuki god that Momoshiki is interested in. And if my very linear thinking is correct, it would also explain his horn, as Boruto, as the inheritor of Kaguya's chakra, who is the inheritor of Shibai's chakra, would manifest Shibai's horn. But this explains a lot more than just Boruto's appearance and powers. In one of the more recent Boruto manga chapters, Daemon, while clinging onto Boruto and walking around with Ada, I believe shopping, sensed Himawari outside. And as he flew outside and confronted Himawari, he talked about how Himawari would be the only person in the village who would be an interesting battle, implying that Daemon, arguably the strongest person in the universe currently, thought that Himawari would be an equal in battle. Himawari is obviously blown aback by this confrontation, as Himawari, even though she is an incredibly talented Byakugan user, who is able to switch between having her regular eyes out and Byakugan eyes out, which, mind you, eye switching is an ability specific to Otsutsukis, did not believe for a singular minute that she should be battling against Daemon. But Daemon implied that Himawari should be able to battle against him, implying that Himawari most likely has access to Shinjutsu. Now, what that Shinjutsu is, we don't really know. I personally hypothesize that the Shinjutsu would be a Tenseigan, as Himawari has a Byakugan, but also has the chakra of Hagoromo and Hamura, making her a pseudo-Otsutsuki with the Byakugan of a human, which are the conditions for awakening a Tenseigan. And Otsutsuki has to acquire the Byakugan of a human and put them in their face. But honestly, her power could go beyond that. It could be some Shinjutsu we've never heard of. As ever being entirely real, Naruto in the last was able to battle against the likes of the Tenseigan in Toneri and win one-on-one. And Daemon has been around Naruto, Kawaki, and Sasuke and doesn't find any of them particularly interesting. He doesn't even find Boruto particularly interesting, which could mean that Himawari is possibly stronger than all of them. Sasuke, a very important character to the Naruto and Boruto storyline who I despise quite possibly more than any other character in fiction. So on this channel, do we try to avoid talking about him as much as possible? Absolutely. After all, it is my channel, I get to do what I want. But is that the wisest financial and or career move for me? Absolutely not, because he is quite literally the co-antagonist of the show. And right now in the Naruto universe, he is once again being thrust into the limelight. So, we're making a video about Sasuke. I'm excited, or are you excited? But what are we talking about with Sasuke today? Well, with Naruto's disappearance in the Boruto timeline, people are wondering if Sasuke is gonna have to take a step forward as the leader of Konoha, or if possibly Sasuke is gonna have to look for ways to buff his strength in order to fill the power vacuum that Naruto's disappearance has created. So today, I wanna talk about Sasuke, obviously, but more importantly, about how Sasuke could possibly get stronger and the strength that he currently has. As Sasuke and Naruto's strength is currently in a weird limbo state, where Naruto without Kurama and Sasuke without his 6-Tome Rinnegan have become possibly substantially weaker. The reason that I say possibly is because in the case of Sasuke, he may not be as weak as we believe him to be. There are numerous plot points that happen in both Naruto and Boruto that imply that even with the loss of a 6-Tome Rinnegan, Sasuke may not have lost as much as we believe. But on top of the fact that Sasuke may not have lost as much as we believed he lost when he was stabbed in the eye, there's also many popular theories talking about how Sasuke could acquire a massive amount of strength. So I'd like to address those theories as well and speak on their validity. Big Sasuke episode coming up. Buckle in. And since we're doing a big Sasuke episode because that's what the followers want, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you're feeling particularly generous, because Nick's feeling particularly generous today, go ahead and follow my other page, The Weeb Commander, where I talk about things I actually enjoy. Most specifically, every other anime that's not Naruto or Boruto. And if you love the sound of my voice talking about anime, go ahead and follow my brand new podcast that I'm doing with Danny Mata called Otaku's Anonymous, where me and Danny break down everything that happened in anime this week. So, Sasuke. Some believe he's in line to become the next Hokage. As with Naruto's disappearance, a precedent has been set that once a Hokage either becomes incapacitated or just straight up disappears in Naruto's case, that a new Hokage needs to be selected somewhat immediately. At least this was the case when Tsunade became incapacitated after the Pain Assault. But whether or not Sasuke is going to become the 8th Hokage doesn't really matter to what we're talking about today. See, title doesn't necessarily matter right now. What truly matters to the majority of people wondering is if Sasuke has the chops to be relevant in the time skip of Boruto. What do I mean by that? Well, it's common knowledge at this point that both Naruto and Sasuke had been nerfed after their battle against Ishiki. And because they've both been nerfed, people have been wondering a couple of different things. How strong are Naruto and Sasuke now? And is there a possibility that one day they can regain their strength? And while there is absolutely roots for both Naruto and Sasuke to regain their strengths, today we're going to be talking about Sasuke specifically, and the routes that Sasuke could take in order to launch himself back into relevancy as far as power goes. But before we talk about how Sasuke can launch himself back into being one of the most powerful characters in Naruto, we have to talk about how strong he currently is. We have to answer the question, how strong is post-nerf Sasuke? And the answer might actually surprise you. See, the loss of something like a 6-Tome Rinnegan should be a massive hit in power. For all intents and purposes, Sasuke should have lost any Sharingan ability he had in that eye and every single Rinnegan ability he had in that eye. So things like access to the 6 paths, Heavenly Hand power, Amaterasu, all should be gone, but they're not. In order to talk about how strong Sasuke might be, we actually have to take a big step back. And when I say a big step back, I mean a step all the way back to the 4th Great Shinobi World War. See, in order to talk about how strong Sasuke might be, we have to talk about Madara, as Madara, outside of Sasuke, is our best example of what Rinnegan and Sharingan abilities look when combined. See, Madara turned a lot of heads during the Fourth Great Shinobi World War, and for a lot of good reasons. See, Madara's powers in the Fourth Great Shinobi World War kind of divide the Naruto fandom into two camps. There's the camp that claim that the majority of the things that Madara did are plot holes, with the other camp using Madara's feats in the Fourth Great Shinobi World War as a basis for how Rinnegan and Sharingan abilities work. And for the sake of argument today, and to make this video more interesting, we're going to be going with the latter camp, basing Sasuke's current power off what we saw from Madara in the Fourth Great Shinobi World War. So, what did we see from Madara in the Fourth Great Shinobi World War? Well, so far as it pertains to Sasuke, two very important things. First of which being that after Madara breaks himself out of Edo Tensei, the Rinnegan he was reincarnated with crumble out of his face. Why, you ask? Probably in order to make sure that there wouldn't be an infinite Rinnegan hack, because if the Rinnegan he was Edo Tensei'd with stayed in his face, then he would not only have those Rinnegan, but the Rinnegan he gave to Nagato, which would be a really cool way to infinitely create Rinnegan. But this isn't much of a problem for Madara because he is A, one of the strongest ninjas of all time, and B, has Hashirama's cell grafted onto him, which has given him Sage Mode. And with this Sage Mode, he's basically able to read the chakra of everybody around him and dodge and fight as if he does have eyes. But Madara's ability to read what's going on around him is not what we need to talk about. No, what we need to talk about is the fact that Madara, with no eyes whatsoever, was still able to access his Susanoo, which has led about half of the Naruto fandom to believe that once somebody awakens a dual MS, regardless of whether or not they still have the Sharingan down the line, they're still able to access their Susanoo. People believe that this point is further proven by the fact that Itachi still has his Susanoo activated, even though both of his Sharingan aren't activated at the end of his battle against Sasuke, which led people to believe that even though Itachi had probably gone blind by the time him and Sasuke were closing up their battle, that he could still access his Susanoo, and people point to the fact that Shisui was able to use his Susanoo with only one of his eyes, even though that's not canon. Which brings us to the very important talking point: could Sasuke still use his Susanoo? And if you use these three kind of sketchy-ish examples, then yes, absolutely, Sasuke still has access to his Susanoo. Even if, hypothetically, Sasuke was stabbed in his other Sharingan, he would probably still have access to his Susanoo, because these three plot points point to the fact that once you get a Susanoo, you got it forever. Unless, of course, you're Kakashi, because he was just borrowing a Susanoo. The real question is, why did Obito need DMS in the Pure Lands? Couldn't have just left those with Kakashi? Whatever, not the point of today's video. So far things aren't looking so bad for Sasuke. He still has access to a full body winged Susanoo that can pull off massive Chidoris. With that power and that power alone, he could probably launch a single man offensive on any of the other hidden villages and win. What if I told you that Madara didn't stop there? See, Madara not only had access to his Susanoo with no eyes, but his Rinnegan abilities. See, this is the significantly less talked about thing that Madara did in that small time period where he had no eyes. Because while Madara has no eyes, he's possibly seen absorbing the Nine-Tails chakra from a downed shinobi. Now, this is never confirmed. It's just the sound of chakra absorption and the chakra going up Madara's foot. But chakra absorption is a Rinnegan ability. Outside of the Karma, the only other thing that can absorb chakra is the Rinnegan. Now, does Madara have to wait until he gets one of his Rinnegan in order to pull off Limbo? Yes. So is this reasoning sketchy at best? Absolutely. But what if hypothetically Rinnegan operate like Mangekyo Sharingan? Upon awakening one, some of the abilities are conferred to you forever. Some of the abilities that are inherent with every single Rinnegan, like chakra absorption. And if you think about it like this, it actually makes a little bit of sense. Stick with me here for 1 second. If hypothetically Sasuke were to lose both of his eyes, he would still have access to the Susanoo. We know this. However, some things that Sasuke wouldn't have access to anymore would be Amaterasu or Kagutsuchi, as these are the abilities of his unique eyes, much in the same way that Obito and Kakashi couldn't use Kamui when their eyes were taken from them. But the Susanoo is different because it's an ability conferred with the awakening of two Mangekyo Sharingan. So what if hypothetically when somebody awakens a Rinnegan, like with Madara or with Sasuke, that the abilities of the six paths stay with them, while individual abilities that might have been conferred with the actual Rinnegan, like Limbo or Heavenly Hand power, disappear upon loss of the Rinnegan. Considering the fact that the Rinnegan is the evolution of the Sharingan, it makes a little bit of sense to me that we would see some similarities in rules. Now, does this feel like a bit of a stretch? Maybe. Would we have seen Sasuke use the six pass abilities of the Rinnegan after his battle against Boroshiki? Also, maybe. Should we have seen Madara using the six pass abilities of the Rinnegan outside of possible chakra absorption when he didn't have eyes, if this was true? Also maybe. But you know what we have seen from Sasuke after the loss of his Rinnegan? Some mysterious happenings. So you know how we just talked about if Sasuke were to lose both of his eyes, he would lose both Amaterasu and Kagutsuchi, right? Well, for quick reference here, in Sasuke's left eye is Amaterasu and Sasuke's right eye is Kagutsuchi. And Mangekyo Sharingan abilities are not interchangeable. If there are split abilities between two eyes, each of these eyes has its own individual ability. That's why Kakashi couldn't Kamui parts of his body away. That's why Obito couldn't Kamui things away from his body away. Each individual eye in a Mangekyo Sharingan has one specific ability. That's not the case for Sasuke, at least we don't think so. See, Sasuke's 6-Tome Rinnegan was in his left eye, and that left eye was destroyed. Now, mind you, Sasuke has a 6-Tome Rinnegan, not a Rinnegan. It's also not a Rinne Sharingan, so it can't pull off things like Infinite Tsukiyomi. The fact that Sasuke has a 6-Tome Rinnegan is important, because a 6-Tome Rinnegan allows Sasuke to continue using his Sharingan abilities with his Rinnegan activated. Because unlike Madara or the Otsutsuki who awoke Rinnegan, Sasuke doesn't have the ability to deactivate his Rinnegan. All Sasuke can activate or deactivate are the 6-Tome in his Rinnegan, as activating the 6-Tome in his Rinnegan give him access to things like space-time ninjutsu, and also his Sharingan abilities. Other people, like Madara, have to switch between their Rinnegan and their Sharingan to use the respective powers of both. As we've seen Madara both alive and as an Edo Tensei switch between his Rinnegan and his Sharingan to use either Rinnegan or Sharingan abilities. The most specific example being when he switched from his Rinnegan to his Sharingan to put the 4th Raikage under Genjutsu. So what am I building at here? That hypothetically, in order for Sasuke to use his Sharingan abilities in his 6-Tome Rinnegan eye, he would have to do one of two things. One, activate the Tome to bring his Rinnegan to a 6-Tome Rinnegan and give him access to his Sharingan abilities, or two, deactivate his Rinnegan and turn it back into a Sharingan, which he cannot do. Which would mean that if hypothetically Sasuke were to lose this 6-Tome Rinnegan eye, that he should, in theory, lose the ability to use Amaterasu. But he hasn't. Sasuke can still very much use Amaterasu. In fact, basically the second after he's stabbed in the eye, he activates Amaterasu in his right eye to attack Borushiki. His right eye's Mangekyo Sharingan ability is Kagutsuchi, which is flame control, which is how Sasuke was separate from Itachi, because he was able to not only create Amaterasu with his left eye, but control its shape and form with his right. But immediately after the destruction of his left eye, and therefore what should have been the destruction of his ability to create black flames in the first place, Sasuke was able to switch his Mangekyo Sharingan ability to his right eye, which is weird, but it also might substantiate our theory that Sasuke, even after the destruction of one of his dojutsus, is able to hold on to the abilities of the dojutsu. So when we consider the fact that we've seen Madara possibly use chakra absorption with no eyes, and seen Sasuke retain the ability to use Amaterasu even after the destruction of his Amaterasu eye, that it's a possibility that he might have access to at least some of the 6 paths still. What makes even more sense when we take into the fact that he, just like with Naruto, should still have access to the 6-path chakra given to him by Hagoromo. So the question becomes, how strong is Sasuke even without a potential new power-up? Which I say there's 2 possible answers: the optimistic theorizing side and the quite possibly more realistic side. We'll start with the realistic side because it's boring. The realistic side would tell you that Sasuke has lost all of his Rinnegan abilities. However, he's somehow managed to retain his ability to use Amaterasu, but we haven't seen him use Amaterasu and Kagutsuchi simultaneously, which would imply that either Amaterasu has taken over for Kagutsuchi, or there's the possibility he still has access to both, but he has to physically switch his eye from Amaterasu to Kagutsuchi, which would probably be incredibly unintuitive and chunky. Outside of that, the realistic estimate would also tell you that he still has access to his Susanoo. Actually, I don't know if the realistic assessment would tell you he still has access to his Susanoo, because I feel as though the realistic assessment would take into the fact that Madara using a Susanoo with no eyes could possibly be a plot hole. Who cares? We'll give him the Susanoo anyways. So outside of the fact that he still has access to Amaterasu and Susanoo, Sasuke still has access to all 5 elemental chakra releases. And we officially learned in Sasuke Retsudan that Sasuke has the ability to combine the chakra releases that he has to create Kekkei Genkai, much in the same way that we've seen Moegi learn how to use wood release by combining earth and water release. We saw Sasuke do this when he was able to combine wind and water release to create an ice release dagger, meaning that hypothetically Sasuke, like any yin-yang user in Naruto, should have access to every single Kekkei Genkai that exists. And while he may not use them as efficiently as Haku or Son Goku, he still has access to Kekkei Genkai, spicing the fact that he's also still probably arguably the strongest Genjutsu user on Earth, as he was during the War Arc, with just the power of his Sharingan able to put all of the tailed beasts under Genjutsu and overpower the Genjutsu of and reverse a Genjutsu onto a member of the Shinoiki clan. And the Shinoiki clan, as wielders of the Ketsurigan, are enhanced Genjutsu users. It's actually largely estimated that Sasuke's Genjutsu ability is greater than that of Itachi's. So All in all, he still has access to all of the Chidori he uses: Susanoo, Amaterasu, possibly Kagutsuchi, all 5 elemental releases, Yin Yang, possibly every single Kekkei Genkai, and an insane repertoire of very powerful genjutsu. So how strong would that make him? Well, considering the fact that he probably has more chakra than he did before he met with Hagoromo and got the 6 Tomei Rinnegan, but has less adaptability and the ability to switch between Amaterasu and Kagutsuchi, would imply to me that Sasuke is probably roughly as powerful as he was during the 4th Great Shinobi World War before he met with Hagoromo, which is crazy powerful, just not in the scope of fighting against Otsutskis, especially when you consider the fact that you can't even use genjutsu against them in the first place. So where does that place Sasuke in the grand scheme of battling against god-ish level threats? Well, in the beginning of Boruto, Sasuke said that he would be able to solo a Kaguya level threat. Now this was adult Sasuke before the nerf, so the real question becomes to me, could Sasuke post-nerf still solo a Kaguya level threat? Well, I don't know if Sasuke ever could solo a Kaguya level threat. I don't know if his feats in Boruto have really proven the fact that he could solo a Kaguya level threat. We're kind of just taking him on his word, but sure, if Sasuke pre-nerf was able to solo a Kaguya level threat, I feel as though post-nerf Sasuke probably couldn't, as after all, I have just placed Sasuke at roughly where he was in the 4th Great Shinobi World War before he met with Hagoromo, and that Sasuke needed a boost from Hagoromo in order to battle against Madara and subsequently Kaguya. So all in all, total assessment, I would say that Sasuke probably lies somewhere around the level of Kinshiki, the lesser Otsutsuki who came with Momoshiki that Momoshiki fused with, but not Kaguya. At least that's what the realistic assessment would tell you. The more theoretical and fun assessment would say that Sasuke still has access to some of his Rinnegan abilities, specifically things like chakra absorption, and maybe the other 5 paths of pain, but definitely not his Rinnegan specific abilities like Heavenly Hand power. So how strong would this more theoretical assessment of Sasuke's strength be? And I think personally, this Sasuke would probably more closely align with Valley of the End Sasuke, as Sasuke was still brand new to the powers of the 6 Tomei Rinnegan in his battle against Naruto, and Sasuke has significantly more chakra as an adult than he did in the Valley of the End. However, in the Valley of the End, he was being boosted by 8.5-tailed beasts. So the real question becomes, how far does this Sasuke make it in the gauntlet? And I believe, obviously, this Sasuke still defeats the likes of Kinshiki and Oroshiki, even though Sasuke did struggle against Oroshiki and Boruto non-canon. But let's be real, Sasuke should absolutely stomp Oroshiki. I mean, if Naruto in the last was able to go toe-to-toe with Toneri with the Tenseigan, Sasuke should be able to go toe-to-toe with Oroshiki without the help of Jiraiya and Boruto and also child Naruto. So time travel arc, best Boruto anime canon arc. And I believe that if adult Sasuke with a fully functioning 6 Tomei Rinnegan is able to go up against Kaguya and win with relative ease like Sasuke was implying, that Sasuke with the power of the 6 paths and not a 6 Tomei Rinnegan should be a roughly equal fight to Kaguya. The only problem is we're not entirely sure if it was the powers of the Rinnegan or the 6 Tomei Rinnegan that allowed Sasuke to track where Kaguya was going to come out of her portals. And that's really what it boils down to. So cool, we now have a perception of how strong Sasuke may or may not be. But what if we wanted him to be stronger? As it currently stands, people see 2 ways that Sasuke could get stronger. The first of which, and most spoken about, is if Sasuke were to graft Hashirama's cell onto his arm and or receive a Hashirama cell arm like Naruto. People, myself included, for a long time believed that if Sasuke were to acquire a Hashirama cell arm like Naruto, he would not only now have 2 arms, which seems to help a little bit in battle, but would also not only heal his now destroyed eye, but awaken a Rinnegan in both eyes like Madara. The reason that people believe this is because Hashirama was a reincarnation of Ashura, and Sasuke is a reincarnation of Indra, and therefore if hypothetically Sasuke were to acquire a Hashirama cell, it would be a blending of Ashura and Indra's chakra. And Madara showed us that when you combined Ashura and Indra's chakra together, you awaken a Rinnegan. And while this isn't immediate, Madara battled against Hashirama in his mid-30s and stole a chunk of Hashirama's flesh and put it in a wound that Hashirama inflicted upon him. And the melding of these 2 DNAs and chakras didn't allow Madara to awaken his Rinnegan until he was late into his 70s or 80s. It still gives Sasuke the possibility of awakening a dual Rinnegan, which would not only guarantee he has the powers of the 6 paths, but also heal his other eye. And as Sasuke, just like Madara, would have now awoken both a Sharingan and a Rinnegan, he would be able to switch between them. Meaning not only would he now have a Rinnegan, but he would also heal his other Sharingan. It's even a possibility, since Sasuke still has the 6 paths chakra flowing through him, that if he were to awaken a dual Rinnegan, it would just be a Rinnegan in the healed 6 Tomei Rinnegan. We don't really know. We've never seen it happen. And for a lot of people, this seems like a very logical thing to do. Naruto had compatibility with Hashirama's cell. There's no reason to believe that Sasuke shouldn't. I mean, if Madara in Indra reincarnate was able to bind to Hashirama's cell why wouldn't Sasuke be able to? Unfortunately, that's not how it works. And here's the thing, I'm not blaming any of you. For a long time, I thought this theory could work as well, but it was actually brought to my attention by a Quora post, which, like, who would have thought that Nick finds truth in Quora, that if Sasuke were to hypothetically graft Hashirama's cells onto him, while it would give him another arm, it definitely wouldn't give him Rinnegan. Though it might hypothetically heal his eye because he would get Hashirama's healing factor. Hashirama is done being Ashura's reincarnation. See, we learned from a couple of panels during the war arc while Hagoromo was explaining reincarnations and how Madara played into all of it, that while Hagoromo was explaining to Naruto how Madara awoke his Rinnegan, he says something very important. Here, I'll read it directly. Though Madara created a certain problem before he finished being a reincarnate, he was so obsessed with power that he stole some of Hashirama's, which, in short, caused the merging of part of Ashura's chakra with Indra's chakra, and resulted in the derivation of my own chakra's power. That's right, the awakening of the Rinnegan. While this is a really cool little lore moment to explain how Madara was able to awaken the Rinnegan, what's truly important here is that Hagoromo says before Madara stopped being a reincarnate, meaning that upon Madara's death, he would no longer be an Indra reincarnate. And this point is actually even further proven in another panel, when Naruto is first meeting with Hagoromo and it's being revealed to him that he is Ashura's reincarnation. Hagoromo says to him that these eyes of mine can clearly see Ashura's chakra clinging to you. Naruto even goes so far as to quip that Ashura is possessing him, which shows us that Ashura and Indra jump from reincarnation to reincarnation upon the death of their previous reincarnate, and they, in essence, possess their reincarnation, meaning that hypothetically, the only way that Sasuke would be able to awaken a dual Rinnegan is if he got the chakra of Naruto, as Naruto is the current and only technically reincarnation of Ashura. And unfortunately, currently Naruto is in the Daikoten, in an extra dimensional space where time doesn't move. So getting his DNA, not really much of an option currently. You know, unless of course there's some of his blood in a lab or a stiff sock somewhere around his bed. But getting a fresh sample as it stands is impossible. So unfortunately, as far as power-ups go, basically all that Sasuke would acquire from getting a Hashirama cell arm is his healing factor and 2 arms. And like, maybe Sage Mode? I mean, Madara got it, which, like, as I'm sitting here, considering the fact this would be an instantaneous power-up, unlike the awakening of 2 Rinnegan, Hashirama's healing factor, 2 arms, and possibly Sage Mode is a good amount, especially when consider the fact that the healing factor might just fix that eye. Still don't know why we haven't done it. Shizune could do it tomorrow.
Oh, I'm atoning for my sins.
Atone for your sins by saving your best friend from the Daikoten, you one-armed bitch. I'm sorry, we've been talking about Sasuke for like 20 minutes and that's my first outburst. This is honestly a world record for me. So if Sasuke isn't gonna go the incredibly easy route of slapping a Hashirama cell arm onto his body and getting all the power through those means, how else could he power up? Well, we're going back to Madara, because when you're in Uchiha looking for power-ups, Madara pretty much figured them all out. And what was Madara's most powerful power-up? The Ten Tails. Shiki's Kara hideout, for all intents and purposes, is currently unguarded. Boro, the Diamond Guy, Victor, basically all of Kara's inners are dead. And Delta, Ada, and Daemon are all on Konoha's side. Not to mention Amado, the person who makes those cyborgs, also on Konoha's side. Pretty much the only person who could possibly be defending the Ten Tails currently is Code. And all you have to do for Code is quite literally toss the 13-year-old Daemon at him and you're fine. So if hypothetically Sasuke wanted to rocket himself back into relevancy, he could do what his forefathers in Madara did and just absorb the Ten Tails. You know what he wouldn't have to worry about after absorbing the Ten Tails? His 6-tome Rinnegan, because he would get a Rinne Sharingan. Because if you're trying to tell me that Sasuke would somehow be a worse conduit for the Ten Tails than Madara, you're confused. Though I guess Madara did have both Indra and Ashura's chakra, so maybe I'm the one who's confused. At the very least, what Sasuke would get access to would be things like True Seeker Orbs and the Sword of Nabucco, all things that Obito had. Though Obito was just a regular guy who got the Ten Tails, not Indra's reincarnation. And the Sword of Nabucco was said to have the powers to create and destroy the Earth, and was more likely than not a Shinjutsu. And since the Sword of Nabucco was created using True Seeker Orbs are also probably a Shinjutsu. And while there's a possibility that True Seeker Orbs could be absorbed through Karma Seals or Rinnegan Sharingan palms, the massive boost of having the Ten Tails as a power bank, and also the possibility that Sasuke could awaken a Rinne Sharingan and therefore have access to space-time ninjutsu, as the space-time ninjutsu that Kaguya used was dependent on her Rinne Sharingan. Not only would Sasuke once again be rocketed back into relevancy in terms of power, he could also travel between dimensions again and look for Naruto and Hinata, as we saw with Obito in the battle against Kaguya, that he was able to use the Kamui power to travel between dimensions that otherwise he probably shouldn't have been able to, meaning that access to just one space-time ninjutsu should grant you the ability, if you are smart enough or keen enough or can follow a trail enough, to find other pocket dimensions like the Daikoten. Now, if hypothetically Sasuke were to not only find some of Naruto's blood, inject it into himself, and then go and absorb the Ten Tails, the Rinne Sharingan would be all but guaranteed. And Sasuke, as a perfect Ten Tails Jinchuriki, would definitely be able to bang with the likes of Borushiki or even Ishiki, hypothetically, as absorbing the Ten Tails would basically make Sasuke an Otsutsuki in the first place. Now, obviously, this would leave Naruto in a sticky situation where he couldn't be the Ten Tails Jinchuriki and rise to being the next stage of Six Paths like I believe he's going to, but Sasuke regaining his space-time ninjutsu ability would be genuinely very interesting, as it would give Sasuke a true arc to redeem himself in the eyes of Konoha, even though he saved Konoha multiple times, and would give the viewers and readers exactly what they want, a story about Naruto and Sasuke trying to come back together, while possibly Boruto is battling it out with Kawaki. And then Naruto wouldn't have to be the person to go to the moon, and we could just ship Sasuke off there forever. God, I would love that. But what do you guys think? Do you think my assessment of how strong post-nerf Sasuke is accurate? Do you think these ways of Sasuke powering up are accurate? Tell me in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. We still haven't done a You Know Nothing about Sasuke yet, and it'll probably be the last video I ever post.